Alright, so there's like two halves to Hearthstone, deck building and play. I'm going to be making a mini-series about each. Here's the first video about the former. There's a lot of debate about the number of different deck types in Hearthstone, and to list them all would make this video run way too long. I think a better idea is just to touch on the main overarching themes in the most popular ones. So if I had to put the types of decks in a line, on one side I would put aggro, and on the other side I would put control. One is fiery and tries to rush down their opponent, while the other one tries to play it cool and slow it down until the late game. This is where they shine. Notice this big gap in the middle? That's where mid-range goes. I've got to be honest though, I don't really like these labels. Like if Control Mage comes into Control Priest, who tries to delay who? The way I like to think about it is that everything is on a kind of time scale, and while you're playing, if your deck is faster than your opponent's, you should simulate playing aggro, and vice versa, be Control if you're slower. This isn't a be-all end-all rule, and it's not always correct, but it's definitely something to keep in mind while you're playing. So what I mean by all this is that when you make a deck and you're choosing a class, for beginners I would recommend looking at the hero power to get an idea of what the class is all about. So firstly, let's look at Warrior. The Warrior hero ability makes your hero gain 2 armor. The difference between this and healing is that you can be full health and potentially gain infinite armor. The Warrior hero power doesn't affect the board like some other classes, but is usually used in combination with weapons to gain value and prolong the game. This is a class where you usually use your cards to control your opponent until you're ready to initiate your plan, whether it be a combo of some kind or dropping a ton of high quality minions. Warrior is a class that sometimes has trouble surviving against aggressive opponents, it's a little tricky to learn, but is very rewarding if you understand the game pacing. Next is Thrall, the Shaman. The hero power summons one of 4 different totems randomly. These totems can be quite powerful and add a body to your side of the board, but randomness somewhat detracts from their value when you get the wrong one in tight situations. Majority of Shaman decks utilize a flood the board mentality and is therefore relatively weak to board clear. In addition to this weakness, your cards are usually pretty weak if you don't already control the board. Many of Shaman's stronger cards utilize the overload mechanic, which is basically borrowing mana from your next turn. Many of these cards are powerful removal and direct damage spells, Shaman being a class that possesses card combinations that can produce colossal amounts of damage in a burst. All in all, if you're able to manage your mana curve well while holding board control, you can very often completely overwhelm your opponents, sometimes even killing them from full health in a single turn. And now onto a hero with an ability very different from the others, Rogue being the only class that can freely spawn a weapon. The weapon the Rogue spawns is very curious in terms of functionality. Using your hero power as Rogue allows you to inflict the 1 damage immediately with your attack, but also sets up for you to inflict another 1 damage the next turn at no additional mana cost. Rogue does not gain armor like Druid or Warrior, and doesn't possess any healing like Paladin, so sometimes you can end up sacrificing a lot of health to gain value from them though. The positives of this weapon use is that Rogue holds an incredibly vast arsenal of weapon-centric spells. An unfortunate adverse element to the class is that Valeera often has trouble gaining board presence, often relying on her ability to draw cards using spell combos. Valeera, in summation, gets incredible value from her powerful spell combos, drawing cards and dealing immense burst damage to both her opponent and their minions. Proper utilization of each combo piece can spell spectacular victory for the Rogue. The 4th hero to be mentioned, we have Uther, the Paladin. This hero power summons a 1/1 Silverhand recruit for you. This minion, although somewhat underwhelming by itself, is permanent value added to your board, and should it stack up over multiple turns, can provide you with huge amounts of power. This is the class with the most versatility. The class is known as the Jack of all trades, usually featuring some amount of board flood, healing, and the ability to buff their minions. Being the Jack of all trades, however, Paladin is also known for being the master of none. The Paladin usually has strong matchups against a range of decks, but sometimes falters once it loses pressure. Finding value in many resources available to you though, you can definitely bring retribution to the demands of justice. And now introducing the most infamous class among Hearthstone players, Rexxar, the Hunter. Hunter is most well known for a deck of the face variety, an aggressive deck that mercilessly pushes for damage on the opponent in terms of closing out the match by drawing into direct damage and spamming the hero ability. Hunter is a class that usually commits to damaging the opponent very early and sustaining damage through the use of high-value sticky minions in terms of stats and minion spawning death rattles. Hunter is usually very easy to learn and play, relying on lucky draws and efficient order of execution to squeeze quick wins out of unsuspecting opponents. Be wary, however, the Hunter usually has very little board control and no defense capability. Once the Hunter runs out of cards, usually as a result of opponent board clear, Rexxar will often have to accept a loss right then and there. Rexile can sometimes trade several cards for Temple, however, this helping to amend the board control issue. So if you believe in the heart of the cards and are good at dragging your mouse over your opponent's face often, you too can become part of the ranked ladder menace. Now moving on to the polar opposite of Hunter that usually ignores card value, we have Malfurion, the Druid. The Druid hero power deals damage similar to the Mage and Rogue hero power, but also gains armor like the Warrior at the same time. This combination of both makes it both more and less versatile than the separate abilities, sometimes perfectly suiting the situation and other times inferior to both. Druid has the unique ability to increase their mana pool artificially and also holds minions with very versatile abilities, some even allowing you to choose between two effects. Druid usually spends early turns ramping up their mana and typically playing a higher mana curve than their opponents. This can sometimes leave them very vulnerable in the early game. Druid, however, does possess very powerful spells, most notably of which is the famous Force Savage combo. Druid, while lacking board flood and small minions, has huge amounts of value in the minions they do possess, and along with Force Savage, let nature guide you, and you can very often find success by simply playing your cards on mana curve. Moving in another direction once again, the nature-loving Druid is worlds apart from Gul'dan. The Warlock has a very interesting hero power, allowing you to gain immense card advantage, but sacrificing life in the meantime. This sometimes leaves you very vulnerable at a low health. The two most notable decks in Warlock being Zoo and Handlock, one spamming the board with low-cost efficient minions, the other playing higher-cost minions buffed by the hand size, both commit to the plan of trading health for firepower. Important to remember though, life tap doesn't do anything to control the board. Gul'dan does possess some powerful board clearing cards, so if you're able to use those to put up a suitable defense and refrain from dropping to direct damage, the sheer amount of card value can sometimes bring victory to Gul'dan and his sadistic practices. Now onto a typical crowd favorite. Mage, being the first class you play in Hearthstone, is renowned for being simple and versatile. Jaina's hero power is able to deal damage through taunt, something that other heroes are not capable of. This comes at a sacrifice of the raw power the ability has, however. Mages, as you can probably guess, specialize in the most powerful spells available. Mage has ridiculous board clear and single target removal while sacrificing minion power in exchange. Every deck that Jaina pilots features spell synergy with her minions for effective and efficient value growth. This allows her to play both fast and slow, versatility once again becoming an evident part of the equation. Mage, along with the aforementioned Hunter, is a great class for beginners. Mage has great tempo control and great catch-up mechanisms available. If you'd like to invest into Jaina Proudmoore, you too can use your magic to tear things apart. Last class on the list, the Priest. The Priest hero power is the least versatile and is actually useless if you can't keep minions on the board, but is definitely and decisively the best if you can make your bodies stick. Priests find value by healing their minions through combat so that sometimes they'll be able to kill their opponent's minions for free. This healing ability also makes you very resilient against aggro. Don't forget though that Priest is incredibly weak without a board presence. Luckily however, Priests can supplement that presence with a unique ability to steal from their opponent. You heard right, the well-believed to be noble Priest is a dirty, rotten thief. Multiple cards for the Priest provide insane value by simply taking them from the opponent. This can sometimes provide a straight 2-for-1 under various conditions, and for anything you don't have the ability to steal, you can use one of your many board clear and removal options at your disposal. Priests usually rely on synergy between their spells and minions and can only really function when all the pieces are put together. When only fragments are found, Anduin can often suffer greatly. Priests have many combos similar to Rogue. With this synergy and some amount of burglary, may your enemies feel the burn of the light. Okay, that about rounds it up. That was a glimpse into each of the classes in Hearthstone and some characteristics they hold and usually capitalize on to bring in the victories. For a new player, however, that was quite the amount of information to absorb. In case you've forgotten everything I've mentioned in this video, here are 3 things to keep in mind. 1. Decks have different plans and different speeds. Make sure your playstyle fits each situation. If you're playing a deck that's faster than your opponent, try to commit your resources in an aggressive nature. If your deck is slower than your opponent's, try to commit your cards to the defense of your hero, sometimes even sacrificing a little bit of value to extend the timeline of the game. Number 2. Really pay attention to your hero power and how it works for you. Your hero power should complement your game plan. Make sure to form synergy wherever you can. And lastly, 3. Just to round out the concept, when you're playing against different decks, try to form different plans on how to play. You can't run the same plan every game when you're playing against different classes and different deck types. Try to adapt against them using some of the information that you've found here. Alright, so that's it. During the next video, I will be continuing this dialogue about each hero, and by the end of the series, I will ensure you a greater understanding of deck building and a perfect foundation for moving into discussion about the playing side of Hearthstone. I welcome any questions in the comments. Please consider liking or sharing the video to help me expand my channel. Subscribing would also let you stay informed about my video releases, and if you're ever online from 6 PM till 1 AM PDT on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I would be very happy to welcome you to my stream. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.